I've made videos about the simply insane amount of crimes committed in Japan, but this is out of the ordinary. If you've been following the channel for a while, you know that the case we're going to talk about today I've already mentioned in another Nevada-chan video. By the way, the story there is also just monstrous. I advise you to read it. So, by international standards, Japan is one of the safest countries in the world. But on those rare occasions when something terrible happens there, the perpetrator always seems to push the situation to the limit. If you ask a CIS person what the worst crime was committed in Japan, they're likely to think of Unit 731 or maybe Nevada-chan, or basically any other high-profile case that resonated. But apparently, if you ask a Japanese person, the first thing that comes to mind is this incident, a case that is rarely discussed, and in general, the press and YouTubers don't really like it because the details are obviously not for everyone. But we'll take our chances, because you're on my channel, where I occasionally explore real-life crimes and strange phenomena. If you like that sort of thing, subscribe and let's get started. So, on the morning of May 27, 1997, a janitor at a junior high school in the city of Kobe went on shift. The morning for this man always began before the students and teachers with the sunrise itself. But even at such a seemingly quiet and peaceful hour, there was a sense of unease in the air, and had been for a long time. The city of Kobe was still reeling from a series of terrorist attacks earlier in the year, when an unknown madman attacked several local teenagers. In February, 2 schoolgirls walking home from class were struck in the back of the head with a hammer. The perpetrator managed to escape before he could be seen, and fortunately, despite suffering severe head injuries, both girls made a full recovery. However, as it turned out, this was not just an isolated incident. On March 16th, the same perpetrator struck again, this time at 10-year-old Ayaka Yamashita and 9-year-old Kazumi Ishika. Ayaka suffered a serious head injury, and Kazumi, whom he attacked just 10 minutes later, was wounded with a sharp blade to the abdomen. Ayaka suffered a head injury and passed away a little over a week after the attack. Kazumi, on the other hand, had survived a terrible ordeal. Her attacker's blade had stopped just short of piercing her vertebral artery, and unlike the other victims, Kazumi was able to get a good look at the man's face. The detectives immediately realized that the same person was behind all 4 attacks. He had left his calling card, mutilated animal carcasses, near each scene. A headless pigeon was found in one place, and a squirrel in another. And as May drew to a close, by then it had been 2 months since the last attack by the unknown maniac. And although he was still at large, parents of children, teachers and students dared to breathe a sigh of relief, believing that this lunatic had simply had enough of everything, had gone off the deep end, or realized that he had made mistakes. But the sigh of relief was eventually replaced by anxiety. On May 24th, a local 11-year-old boy, Jun Hayes, disappeared. Everyone suspected that the same elusive killer was responsible for his disappearance. On the morning of that ill-fated May 27th, a janitor was approaching the school and noticed small, dark objects lying on the ground near the main entrance. As he got closer, he realized that they were the mutilated remains of 2 pets. At first, he didn't realize what was wrong and worriedly walked on, noticing another object at the foot of the main gate. Upon closer inspection, he realized that it wasn't just any animal. It was the severed head of Jun Jose, the same boy who had disappeared just 3 days ago. The eye sockets were empty, and carved into the raft were small X marks. Inside the mouth, cut from ear to ear, lay a crumpled paper note. On it, a mocking message written in red ink had been left for the detectives. "This is the beginning of the game. Police, stop me if you can." Just below, the perpetrator had also written a misspelled message in English, and at the end, it was signed Sakakibara Seito. It was a pseudonym created using kanji characters meaning "Sack Devil Rose Holy," and fighting on the same day 500 meters west of the school on a mountain known as Reservoir Mountain. The headless body of a boy was found. It was carefully hidden, and it was soon determined that the head had been cut off with a handsaw and later mutilated with the same tool. Despite a call for information, no new witnesses came forward. However, newspapers and TV stations speculated that the perpetrator was most likely a man in his 30s or 40s with a very strong build. A week and a half after Jones' head was found, the editorial office of Koba Shim, one of the city's largest newspapers, received a brown envelope with no return address. Inside was a 3-page letter written by a man claiming to be the crowning glory. The letter said the following: "I am putting my life on the line for this game. If I am caught, I am likely to be hanged. The police should be more sensitive and persistent in pursuing me. Only when I commit violence am I freed from constant hatred and find peace. Only when I hurt someone else am I relieved." Claimed that he would attack schools out of his hatred for the Japanese education system, which he said had made him battered, isolated and lonely. The letter was again signed by Sakakibara, and due to the general panic and commotion, the Japanese media mistakenly gave his name as Anibara Devil Rose. This mistake cost the journalists dearly, for it caused Sakakibara to send another letter to the newsroom. "From now on, if you misread my name or spoil my mood, I will destroy 3 vegetables a week. If you think I only have my eye on children, you are sorely mistaken. By vegetables, I meant members of the general public." He was literally saying that he would take 3 random lives a week if anyone made the mistake of saying his name again. Eventually, a young man with a history of torturing animals with the help of the very victim, Kazumi, came to the investigators' attention. They had enough evidence to charge him. Finally, on June 28th, a month after Jun's head was found near the school gates, the nightmare came to an end. The arrest of the 14-year-old suspect was announced. The public was stunned that the culprit was such a young teenager. Because of Japan's strict privacy laws, the suspect's name remained unknown for decades, and the media simply referred to him as the boy. Recently, however, his real name, Shinichiro Azuma, has been revealed. He attended the same school as Duno Has, the same school where the head was found. Azuma told authorities how he lured Juno to the mountain on Saturday, May 24th, promising to show him a giant tortoise that lived by the water tank. Together, they climbed up the trail to the top. There, Azuma strangled Jun with an ordinary shoelace and then hid his body under the floorboards of a nearby hut. The next day, he returned with a handsaw and a black garbage bag. There, he removed Jun's head and even drank some of his pure blood. He explained that in this way he had cleaned his own, which he considered dirty. He also removed his eyes, explaining that he had thus extracted his soul. He took the head to his home and then laid it at the front gate of his school. Early on the morning of May 27th, when asked why he did this, Azuma simply replied that he had a strong urge to kill that day. And when he ran into Dune, who was on his way to his grandparents' house, he remembered that the boy loved turtles and shult his easy custom. Azuma claimed that he felt satisfied that the boy now belonged to him. His reasons for leaving his head near the junior high school were twofold. First, it was a distraction. In Azuma's opinion, the detectives would never have thought the killer would leave his creation near a school, his own school. Second, he saw it as revenge. Revenge against the school itself, the institution that he believed was destroying his spirit and turning him into a semblance of his former self. When questioned by investigators, Azu not only admitted to taking Dune's life, but also stated that he was the one who had attacked 4 schoolgirls earlier that year, including Ayaka Yamashita, who died from her injuries. Speaking of Ayaka, Azuma wrote in his diary, "Today, I conducted a special experiment to confirm how fragile human beings are. I brought in the hammer when the girl turned to face me. I think I hit her a few more times, but I was too excited to remember it." When Ayaka died from her injuries on March 2nd, Azuma again wrote in his diary, "This morning, my mother told me that that poor girl who was attacked seems to have died. There is no sign of me being found. I thank Bamo and Dokin for that. The police are still continuing to look for me. Who this Bamo Dokin is remains unclear. One source claims it is a deity, often depicted as a floating Buddha's head. But why Azuma thought this being was protecting him can only be guessed. Whatever the case, the handwriting in his diary completely matched the letter sent to the media and the very same note. In the end, Shinichiro Azuma was found guilty of killing Ayaka and Ju and sent to a juvenile correctional facility. His lawyers tried to argue that Azuma was pinned for a crime he did not commit. In general, Japan is notorious for its 99.8% conviction rate and is often criticized for jailing blatantly innocent people, forcing them to give false confessions. By comparison, Russia has a conviction rate of 7/8. Anyway, his lawyers cited the fact that the perpetrator was left-handed and Azuma was right-handed. In addition, the one who wrote the notes for the media used many complex figures of speech and intricate kanji, and was undoubtedly a well-read and intelligent person. With the utmost respect, they said that Azuma, who studied at best a C, wasn't smart enough to write them. Not to mention that in his handwritten confession, Azuma claimed to have done things that were impossible for a 14-year-old to do. These statements by Azuma's attorney prompted his own mother to visit him in jail and ask him face-to-face whether he was really guilty of the crimes he had been convicted of. Quite calmly and sincerely, he assured her that he was. On March 11, 2004, less than 7 years after his incarceration, 21-year-old Azuma was released from prison. After his release, Azuma published a convict book, Memoirs of the 97th Murders. Despite public outrage that he was trying to profit from his horrific deeds and torturing the families of his victims, this did not stop the book from becoming a #1 bestseller in Japan and making Azuma a wealthy man. To top it all off, Azuma sent the families of his victims a personal apology note attached to a copy of his own book, which was quite provocative. Attempts were made to ban the release of the memoir, and some called for new laws banning such people from publishing books related to their crimes. Psychologists have subsequently opined that Azuma was a narcissistic, deranged person, often referring to the infamous Kobe school case, which is considered basically one of the most notorious crimes in modern Japanese history. It had a great impact on the country itself, and not only psychologically, but also legally, because thanks to Azuma, the government lowered the minimum age of criminals subject to criminal punishment from 16 to 14. The worst part of this case is perhaps that it was foreseeable. However, neither his family nor Japan itself could have done so until it was too late. And thanks for watching.